Good afternoon. Thank you for logging in. Um, we have here the first, in your screen, you might see that we have uh, all the ports that Mexico have, and the ones in orange, the ones with, you have the border with the U.S. We would like to talk more about what is going on between the U.S. and Mexico for this presentation. We can go to another screen. Okay. Northbound. How the border crossing happens on northbound. These are shipments coming from Mexico into the U.S. As you can see in a very brief way that once the merchandise arrives to the border, we should have all the paperwork ready to cross them. This is the most not time consuming to do it on time of border crossing. Can you hear me? I hear a little bit of echo, sorry.
Yeah, we have you loud and clear.
Okay, sorry for that. I hear that. So if you can see, prior to once the merchandise is shipped from Mexico, the first thing that as the brokers we receive is the Mexican shippers documentation that you can see. It's the normal commercial invoice, packing list, all other government agencies documents, and NAFTA certificate if it's required. At the same time, we prepare the customs entry on the U.S. So this is happening simultaneous between Mexico and the U.S. are both offices. Then once the truck or the merchandise arrives to the border, we should have a designated carrier to cross from Mexico into the U.S. Even though it's a very short distance, well, that's where the time is consumed. You know, we can have an average 4 all the way to 7 hours for border crossing because of the lines and the detail that both authorities will like to check on the merchandise. We will discuss later on what we do on the paperwork, just to keep on going. Like I said, we prepare, or we hired a drayage, a local truck. Usually they're Mexican trucks. They are the ones who sit for those hours at the border to do the border crossing. Not the trucks from Mexico or the trucks from the U.S., the carriers are usually, very few are the ones who do actually the border crossing. We have service providers, local service providers that are the ones doing this actual border crossing. Once it crosses from Mexico into the U.S., we deliver it to the terminal. It can be our own, the broker's warehouse, or it can be, if we know who's the carrier who's going to haul it up north, then we can deliver directly to them. And then, later on, the delivery happens. So this is coming from Mexico into the U.S. And, like I said, the time consuming is the border crossing. Now let's talk a little bit about southbound. This is going from the U.S. into Mexico. The same happens at the same time that the merchandise leaves the supplier, the exporter in the U.S. Paperwork has to be sent to the broker, to the client, to the importer in Mexico. And we will receive the merchandise here at the border. Why the merchandise stops at the border and it gets unloaded and delivered to the Mexican brokers' warehouses or to the freight force warehouse is because the Mexican broker needs to verify what is that the shipper is sending to the Mexican importer. This means they have to do a count. They have to count each piece. They need to check for special markings. They need to verify that country of origin, the markings of the merchandise. and that, well, that whatever is going to be on Mexican customs documents, it's accurate according to what physically we receive at the warehouses. Here it's time consuming also. That's why it doesn't go directly into customs until this is verified. Also, here is where we file the AES, the EEI, the export, electronic export information to the Census and U.S. Customs prior to the border crossing. For trucking, well, we have to have that filed at least 1 hour ahead of time that we present the merchandise with U.S. Customs for exportation purposes. U.S. Customs very rarely stops a truck to check what is being declared, but just in case, well, we also have to be very, fines are, well, Adam can say about that, fines are very significant in case we avoid not filing the EI or we don't declare the correct amount of merchandise. Okay, prior to the border crossing, once we prepare our Mexican pedimento, that's our customs document to enter into Mexico, Mexico requires that all duties and taxes has to be paid prior to border crossing. So that's another step that as brokers we have to wait for the importer to send us their funds for us to pay on their behalf to the to customs all the duties due prior to border crossing. And also there's a step there that we transmit a COVE, C-O-V-E, that it's the documents, is the invoice of the shipper. We have to declare it electronically. But we will see that in the next screen for you. Once we have, we check our merchandise, we prepare our documentations for customs purposes, we pay duties and taxes. Again, we hired a local drayage to do the border crossing. They will come and hook the trailer and we load them and they go to U.S. Customs Police first, and then they go to Mexican Customs. A less than a half-mile distance, but they have to stop for both customs. Once we get to Mexican Customs, well, we can have a red light or a green light. That's mean if the cargo is chosen for intensive or is going to be have a green light, then it can go without any more detention time at the border. We cannot say it's random, the selection, unless, you know, sometimes Mexican wants to inspect a special commodity, so everybody will stop and be inspected. Once we exit Mexican Customs, we go to the terminal, Mexican terminal, and deliver our merchandise. And from there, the Mexican carriers will take it to final destination.